Welcome back to Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. Oddly, I am Chat Show. How are you? How the fuck are you? You don't write, you don't call. What is your problem? We've had a week off between the time we saw you last with the Jamie Lee Fitness. What a fine show that was. She's a delight. What's been happening? I'll tell you right now. Jury duty. I'm one of those civilians, our guest turns out is not, we'll get into that in a minute, who gets the thing in the mail and says, yeah, sure, I have no problem serving my duty to my public. By my public, I really mean our local public. However, once I got in there, it took 3 days to get into the jury box for selection. 3 days of going back. And I had work the next day. Chance to make a lot of money. So, they got the questions that the judge goes over. If anyone has a problem with, raise your hand. Can you not be impartial and unbiased? And I'd seen this judge, God bless her, go through dozens of people. Way too many questions. Yes, you see each weasel try to get out of it. I don't want to be one of these weasels. But suddenly this is taking so long, I've got work the next day. So I raise my hand, is there anything impartial, any reason you can't be fair? And the thing that keeps coming up with these other people is, within the letter of the law, yes, I understand you have a problem because one asshole literally raised his hand and said, I have a problem judging people. I have an emotional reaction to judging people. I was judged. Is this something that this asshole rehearsed at home? Who did he run that by? Nobody would be my guess. No one. So I'd heard her deal with the yes, but can you do your best to follow the letter of the law? That's all we asked. Listen to the evidence, and they all cracked. I wasn't going to crack. And there's a little thing at the top that says, if any of the questions are embarrassing for you to discuss, you may ask for a sidebar or some other legal term, where you go behind a wall where the rest of the people in the room can't hear your little difficulties. So, sure enough, it got to me. I got called into the box. Down to two needed to be added. So it's this close to a clean getaway. Go behind it. I raise my hand. Yeah. Okay, can we, Tim? Mm-hmm. Go behind the wall. Now we got the prosecutor and defender and the judge, and they're all looking at me. And I can see in the prosecutor and defender's eyes, they're looking at me with that look I've seen a few times, folks. I know who you are. Judge, not a fucking clue. Fine. Not looking for special treatment. And in fact, I say to her and them, listen. First of all, I just want to say that my reason for asking for this sidebar, because only one other person had in 3 days, is that presumably I'm the only person out there whose divorce was covered by TMZ. So I'd rather not discuss my inability to be impartial in front of all those idiots who have no problem sharing their life story. My cousin was this blank blank. Yeah, my brother suffers from blank. Everyone just for the world to hear. What this is happening the whole time people are talking. You got this person. Yeah, stenographer.
Yep.
Court reporter.
Yep.
Doing this the whole time. By the way, playing chops. What's happening? Why is it just this move? The fingers don't move. So then I lay out and then she says, yes, but do you think No, I don't. I don't think that I can be impartial. Listen, I'm embarrassed. I'm not proud of this, but I'm just telling you I'm going to be biased. Just telling you straight out. Okay, well. Go run the thing. And then there's that moment. You're in the thing, and every time someone is being a pain in the ass, everyone else is, God, you're just slowing the whole fucking thing down, asshole. Jurors 15 is released. Thank you. I stand up and just stink eye from every person in the fucking courtroom. And that's how that went. So I tried to serve my public duty, but it just took too fucking long, people. I guess really is the long of it. Pick up the pace. How do you do the show? We're coming to you live from the West Side Comedy Theater. Write to us.
That's your closer?
kpcsfanmail@gmail.com. Sammy, we had brunch last Sunday. We couldn't do the show. We had to take Lynn Levine to brunch.
That's absolutely right.
That's the only reason we couldn't do the show last week.
I take full responsibility. I said no show. It's brunch time.
She had a good time.
She had a great time.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Went down to the MB Post down near Manhattan Beach.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best brunches ever.
It was spectacular.
Right?
Yeah.
Bacon cheddar biscuits? What can go wrong when you're eating, when you give over to, I'm going to have this?
Nothing.
I'm allowed to have today, I'm allowed to have bacon cheddar biscuits.
And we did.
Oh, man.
Oh. Yeah.
And that bacon. What was happening with
I don't know.
They fucked up an order. Your mom's thing came late, and they brought us a skillet of more bacon.
Here's more bacon.
Soaking in its own juice.
Because you can't be sad eating freshly cooked bacon.
You really can't.
You can't be sad.
You can't be frustrated when they put extra pork in front of you.
No.
No.
Not as a couple of good Jews.
Your Cubs won again last night. Coming out of the chute fast. Coming out hot.
They're coming out red hot.
4-1, 5-2.
4-1, my friend.
4-1. Look at that. It's exciting as hell.
It's very exciting.
Well, you know, all the odds makers are saying this is the Cubs' year.
That's what I've been saying.
When's the last time that happened? 08, you said.
08 was the last time they were a
And then
favorite.
before that,
going
1952.
well, all 7 they won the division back-to-back years. It's not important.
No.
It's not important.
We have a guy, a friend of ours, who the two of you just go at it because he's from St. Louis.
That's right.
He'd like to stir up the oldest rivalry in professional sports. How many of you knew that?
That's correct, sir.
Cubs and Cards, of all sports.
We have a good time.
Sammy, big plans for next Sunday night?
I just thought I was going to put on a movie or two and, just get some Chinese food.
You're not going to
What?
be on stage at Largo de Coronet?
What?
Yeah, the 7th
I should've done
anniversary of
it.
the chat show.
A spit take.
Jeff Goldblum, Colin Hay, who's fucking hilarious, it turns out,
Oh, yeah.
and arguably one of the top touring stand-ups of the day, who used to open up for our guest, Mr. Bill Burr. He's going to do a tight set.
All right, you convinced me. I'll show up.
Please, I'd like you on stage.
With pleasure, sir.
Yeah, even when Bill Burr's doing his set. I just want to leave you out there in your chair. Jamie's in the Walt Disney World, not here, with family. Go to the Instagram. There's plenty of pictures of her dancing with, what do you think? Who's in that King Louis costume? Like a 14-year-old Spanish kid? Who's the cast members in those costumes? I know at Disneyland there are 14-year-olds. Are there labor laws?
Probably not. It's Florida. It's lawless.
I've kept our guest staring long enough. I've got listener, viewer, email. He's passing out right in front of me.
Oh, we lost him.
Stat. Clear. Yeah, he's back. I wrote a little intro.
Oh.
263rd show. You think you do more than that in 7 years? A lot of these people doing 2 a week. That's where the money's at. Aside from being an multi-Emmy Award-winning writer, our guest today is a stand-up comedy veteran, as well as the host of his own very underlined, bold letters, popular podcast, Fitzdog Radio, as well as a popular Sirius radio show on Howard Stern's network. Channel, whatever you call it. He's a devoted family man, I'll have you know, those of you who've been doubting that, who also just turned 50. Please welcome Mr. Greg Fitzsimmons. So, half a century.
Thank you.
Half a century.
Half a century, 2 days ago.
Yeah.
3 days ago.
The dossier said April 5th. Is that incorrect?
April 5th. It's been a blur. It's been a blur. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Look,
I'm like you. I'm happily married.
Sure.
Now I have children. I don't believe you have children.
Right, you went ahead and breeded.
Went ahead and breeded, and I love the kids. I cannot believe my luck in doing something I love as much as I do, that I'm still passionate about every night. But 50 hit me subconsciously. I walked around in a haze.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, believe me, there wasn't a thought in my head like, oh my God, you're old, or oh my God, you didn't do this. It was just like a number kicked me in the balls, and I told my wife to shut up in the middle of talking. I never do that. I go, just shut up.
How'd that go down?
She ignored it because she knows I'm not like that.
She's very smart.
She's a good chick. My wife's a good chick.
Solid.
She knows when I'm a little off my game, and we both are loose on the leash.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And how long you been together?
17 years this summer.
Nice.
Yeah.
What will you do to celebrate that?
We don't go big. We usually.
It's okay to say you've made no plans yet.
Oh, Italy.
We don't go big usually. It's okay to say you don't have plans.
Well,
both come into, Italy.
I can't say that we're going to Italy because of our anniversary, but we will be in Italy during our anniversary. So I'm going to start spinning that.
What?
Yeah.
You kidding?
Yeah.
Solid gold.
I know.
You've been to the country before?
I was 18 and I was traveling alone through Italy, so it will be a very different experience. I will get laid less on this trip to Italy than I did on the last one.
I was going to say less masturbating on this trip, but maybe more, it sounds like.
No, youth hostels, man. They were youth hostels in the 80s in Europe.
Forget it.
Crazy. There was one in Spain.
Sure.
Barcelona. You check in. You're in your little bunk bed. Get up in the morning. I go down the hallway and I open up the door to the locker room. And I take 2 steps in, and there are naked women and guys all over. No, I'm sorry.
Like
naked
Plato's
women,
Retreat.
Like naked women. I go to leave.
Sure.
Naked woman leans out the door and goes, no, it is okay. It is co-educational. And I go in, and it's these Scandinavian women that have no shame about their beautiful bodies.
Sure.
And I was very clean that week. I took a fair amount of showers.
I don't hear a lot of in and out. I'm just hearing gawking.
The in and out did not happen in that particular instance.
Okay,
but
appreciate the honesty. By the way, we've done the research. We could have called you on it had you said otherwise.
Right. Caught me in a lie.
How great is that? So you're going back to Italy, and how long will you stay?
We'll be there for 17 days.
Can I make 2 suggestions?
Please.
Okay. Rent a car for sure.
Yeah.
Drive as much as you can.
Yeah.
Highway system's very similar to the States. Except, you know how we like to warn the driver, your exit is 1.75 miles. Your exit is 1.25 miles. Your exit isn't 3/4 of a mile. Your exit is half a mile.
Yeah.
Your exit is 1/4 mile. Theirs is, here's your exit.
Right.
So that's the only difference.
Yeah.
Not a lot of warnings. But it's fantastic to drive in that country.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Spent greatest trip ever was a month driving in Italy.
Did you go down the Amalfi Coast?
Yeah, I went the whole
That's where
thing.
we're going to be.
Drove the Amalfi Coast. So here's the second, and this is the biggest one. For anyone, for any vacation, out of the United States, maybe even in, but definitely out, and definitely in Italy, arguably the best food in the world. Every meal you have, they'll sit you, they'll bring you a menu and say, no thank you, whatever the chef would like to make us.
Very nice.
I promise you, you will not stop telling people about this little trick.
Right.
It's ridiculous, because now the chef is going to show off. They're all family run. They can't believe an American is going to put it in their hands.
Yeah.
They don't need a menu.
Yeah.
Whatever the chef would like to make. Lunch, dinner, every meal. Don't, please, I beg you.
And is it like that at the museums? You walk in.
Whatever the art they want to show us.
Whatever art they want to show us?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You go into the restroom.
Are you going to your
You want to
Uffizi?
go? Should I make a urine?
You
or
go
a poo-poo?
to Firenze?
Firenze, of course.
So the Uffizi Gallery, you got to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The gelato, you can't eat enough gelato.
Yeah.
It's every 9 feet. There's another stand.
I love it.
It's like a different kind of cream, different milk.
Tell me where the best
cows.
pizza is. One person told me Napoli is the place to get the pizza.
You mean the town of Naples?
Yeah.
Sure, but
Just
also
about everywhere.
Here's the warning I had about Naples. You know, when you're driving to Rome, you're going to go through Napoli.
Yeah.
Very, very careful driving.
Right.
They're thieves.
Yep.
They'll point to your tire. They'll pull up next to you, point to your tire, tell you to pull over. If you do, they'll take everything.
Right.
Don't pull over.
I've heard the crime is really bad.
But by the way, it had me doing this through Naples, but I didn't see any crime. I didn't see anything but wonderful, the most fantastic. It's as if they're still being liberated by you.
Yeah. Really?
Yes, they love Americans. Like you feel you can get anything for a box of chocolates and some nylons. I'm not kidding. It's unbelievable.
The deep kiss.
Yes,
You go in.
Yes.
Wow.
I remember our last day we went in Venice. Went to a store that I kept walking by and couldn't pull the trigger on buying, whatever. And they take this huge siesta in the middle of the day.
Oh, that's my favorite.
It's all closed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm knocking on the thing, and the guy says, "No, come back. We're at lunch." Yeah, no, I'm leaving the plane. I have to leave. It's okay. No, but there's the item there, fanning out the money.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Really?
I'm going to the airport. I'm leaving. I may never see you again.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So you don't want to sell that? Hey, we're at lunch.
Yeah.
Don't care. Work to live here. We live to work.
But I love that we were in Spain last spring, and we really did. I thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
And it happens, and then you start getting into the flow of it. You don't mind getting up early and doing the tourist thing because 2, 3 o'clock, you're going to get a novel, and you're going to lay out on a beach or in your little villa or wherever you are. and you're going to take that nap where you wake up and then you look out the window and you're like, I thought it was a dream, but I'm really here.
Yes.
And I get to go do more of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And, the people they're fashionable there. They're good-looking people,
Yes.
right? You enjoy the men as much as the women.
How does that affect you?
Well,
Just eye candy.
I don't know why it is. Like I am so visual that I still. One of the things that if I ever gave up stand-up, that I think would make it the hardest is after the show, meeting and greeting the audience and seeing the women that you were looking down at the show, and you make little notes like, I really want to see this woman walking. And then after the show, you see that maybe she has a fat ass, or she only looked good from above, or sometimes
You didn't
it's
know
like,
she was in a wheelchair?
well, that's hot in its own way.
Sure. But you're not going to see her.
Jerry Lewis is really into that look. And so, and then you meet them, and there's like that little 30 seconds of flirtation, little bursts of flirtation. And I think that's like that feeds me in a way.
Uh-huh.
It's not dangerous, nothing's gonna happen, but you just get off stage and they're enamored by you, and they will take a picture. Here's the thing I love, they do the picture, and then they go low, they go under you, tit goes into your armpit, and they know they're doing it. They push right in.
How long How long again did you say you've been married?
17 years.
17 years. And your wife won't put a tit in the armpit? Because it sounds like that's really all you want.
At this point, her tit goes into her own armpit.
Is this thing on? I'm trying to go through the litany of things I yelled at you. Well, save it for the show. So let's go to Jerry Lewis first, since you were kind enough to mention him. So he just turned 90.
Happy birthday, Jerry.
You turned 50.
Yes.
He turned 90.
Right.
You said you had a couple Jerry Lewis stories.
Well, first of all, there's a book called The Comedians. Are you familiar with this book?
I am.
It just came out. It's amazing. It tracks the history of stand-up from literally like the turn of the 19th century into vaudeville and into cabaret and all the different.
You said it just came out.
It just came out.
I must be thinking of a different book.
Yeah, I maybe it was a year. I think a year ago it came out.
Okay.
But it talks about Jerry Lewis when it gets to him and how it was like the Saturday night when everybody was doing the Saturday night shows. The Texaco brings you Jack, what was that guy's name? Jack Carter. Jack Benny. And Jerry Lewis got his, and he was so big at the time that they gave him $8 million a year in the 1950s to host a talk show. They built a set in what's the Troubadour Theater here in LA.
Sure.
And they tricked it out with gold-plated stuff in his dressing room. All the tiles in the theater have JL on them. And I mean, on and on and on about what they spent on this theater for him. And then he would not give them any outline of what the show was going to be. He felt so indulged that he said, I'm just going to be me. And they're going like, we're doing back then, 2-hour shows.
Wow.
And
This is just radio or TV?
No, this is TV. And he goes out and shits the bed.
Now
I mean, no ratings.
What year?
I gotta say 1954-ish, somewhere around there. And it's a disaster. And they've spent all this money and they air about 3 weeks of episodes and they kill it and they just took a bath.
Holy Toledo. He did that again later with
he?
Charlie Callis as his sidekick.
No
he took
kidding.
a run at Carson.
Really?
Yeah. And it too lasted maybe 6 episodes.
I think he's a difficult guy. My father was a big radio guy in New York. And
Yes.
he hosted the Jerry Lewis Telethon. Each city has its own host. So my dad,
For many years in the dossier it said.
20 years or something like that. And he did it with Jerry Lewis, Tony Orlando for many years.
Out of New York, out of the
WNEW.
Right.
And then he hosted the telethon. Then he hosted the telethon with sweet Patty Duke Aston, who just passed away. And
Right.
John Aston, who played, of course, Mr.
Adams.
And so...
Rarely called Mr. Adams.
What's that?
He was rarely called Mr. Adams.
Right.
Sammy?
I'm sorry?
What'd you say?
I would say he was rarely called that.
What is Sammy doing over there? We're in a live show. He's got his own camera fixed on him, and the guy's looking at his cell phone.
I'm getting texts. Apparently, Jerry Lewis also had a successful run as Jerry Langford in The King of Comedy.
Yes.
Oh,
That's
right.
That comes from J-Mac up in the Crow's Nest.
Right.
Very long run.
So-
Jerry Langford.
So long story short, my dad, they would do, usually from Vegas, they do 40 minutes and then 20 minutes from the local cities.
Yes.
And then it became 15 minutes from local cities because Jerry wanted to do another song, then 12 because Jerry wanted to do another song. And it just became, less and less of a gig as Jerry wanted to absorb more of the show.
Sure.
Yeah. So fuck him. He hasn't done anything for the kids. No, he's a great man.
I'm not buying either one of those. I don't buy the false fuck him.
No, it's not fuck him, but my mother got very upset that my dad was losing screen time.
Sure.
She was like his...
She would yell
Yeah, she would yell.
at the TV.
Right.
This was an interesting dinner table, according to the dossier, in terms of if you could get the laughs and steal a little bit of focus.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of, it was like a competition, maybe? Or just you saw early on, here's a chance for me to get a little folks' attention.
Yeah. I think it was like, my dad was an alcoholic, so it was classic alcoholic behavior where you try to, number one, try to get the love that you're not getting that often, and number two, sometimes distract other people. Maybe you've got dinner guests, and you want to distract the attention from your father who's now slurring into you who's, hey, I'm over here.
Sure.
Yeah, there was some of that. But it was a great dinner table. My mother's funny as hell.
Right.
My sister and brother are funny, and so I was definitely the guy
Yeah.
at the table. I was the Lenny Bruce of the table.
And were you doing like material that you would hear from comedy albums, or were you actually spewing?
Yes, definitely material from comedy albums.
Yeah.
Steve Martin early on, and Bill Cosby.
Sure.
I not the material, but I would drug my sister. And there was a lot of busting balls. It was very Irish. It was all about shitting on each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a Boston setting.
No, New York, Bronx,
York.
Bronx, New York.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
yeah.
When did wait a minute. The research said something about Boston.
Went to college in Boston.
That's
That's where I
what it
started
is.
doing stand-up comedy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Can you explain for the listeners and viewers?
Caught me in a lie.
Hup, come in line. Anyway,
Are we going to reference that story or just keep it between us?
we're not going to tell the listeners and viewers. Pitch me the possibility of a regular, if not wildly popular, local comedy venue in Boston called the Ding Ho. Go ahead and pitch that to me as an idea.
Okay, here's the thing. It's Chinese food. It's
Wait a
dark.
second. This is a comedy club.
Yeah,
Is that what you're telling me about?
it started as a Chinese restaurant.
I know. I'm saying I'm the person you're pitching. The idea that you're going to do this.
I've started to.
Okay.
It's a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. And you're playing the person who's doubtful.
Yes.
Aggressively doubtful.
Yes. Yes.
All right. It's a Chinese restaurant.
What is the comedy club?
The Ding Ho is.
Okay.
But it's a venue that has seats and they have a bar.
So in the Chinese restaurant, we're going to clear away some tables in the corner and put up a comedy show?
No, it's just going to be in the actual restaurant. So we're going to put a microphone in the corner and a small spotlight. We're going to bring the most foul-mouthed, cocaine-addicted personalities in Boston on, and they're going to shit on the owner, the patrons, and the food. We'll charge them, and eventually the producer of The Tonight Show will come and start pulling these guys out and making them famous.
Okay. What's the matter with you? Is my first question. Who would allow this to happen?
Right.
How? I don't know whether the owner, who first had to sit in this seat and be pitched and say yes, was wildly in debt and struggling for any possible way to bring in new customers,
Right.
or what? Did anyone ever find out his or her story, the owner of the place?
Well, there's a film by Fran Salamita called When Stand-Up Stood Out. It's a great documentary, and it really tracks the history of the Ding Ho.
Wow.
And I don't remember from the film if he dealt with how it got started, but I know that Lenny Clark was the formative personality that got it started, which if you've been in a room with Lenny Clark, he could sell you what would be hard to sell you? Something that would be difficult to sell you.
Religion?
Religion. He could convert you to Islam.
Okay.
And so I'm sure he went in and he said, here's what we're going to do, pal. Pal, it's going to be fantastic. Arm around him. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to love it. He's amazing. And so he started doing the show. He would host it every week. And then he'd bring on guys like Stephen Wright, Steve Sweeney, Kenny Rogerson, Kevin Meaney. And basically...
What year are you there?
I was never there. This was before my time.
Right.
I was just after Ding Ho. But it was like the Dodger Stadium it was Ebbets Field before the Dodgers moved to Los Angeles.
Holy shit. Because my first experience was going on the road as a very young man, stand-up 21, I'd heard this great comedy scene in Boston, and I played the Ding Ho.
You did?
And I remember thinking, how did this happen?
Yeah.
What am I doing here?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. And Stephen Wright would go on.
Oh yeah, everyone.
But he would bomb. But he would bomb. And apparently, Sweeney and Lenny sat him down like an intervention after 7-8 years and said, "Listen, man, you got to look into doing something else. This is not going to happen. This is not for you." And then
Jim McCauley shows up.
Then McCauley shows up from the Tonight Show. He'd heard about this Ding Ho thing, and he said, "I got to check it out."
He too said, "I can't believe this is happening."
He can't believe it's happening, and he says, he sees everybody, and now these guys, this is not made up. They did cocaine at the bar.
Yeah.
And then they would go up, and McCauley's there, Tonight Show, and they're doing like, so I'm in fucking Weymouth, and Shorty's Sports Bar, you come, and it's all local references. They're going like this, they're cursing their asses off, and then Stephen Wright gets up, and he does, as you know, Stephen Wright, joke, clean, interesting. And he's the only guy that gets picked to do the Tonight Show. And Lenny is livid. He's like,
mind.
Stephen fucking Wright? So Stephen gets flown out. He does an appearance. And they say, stay in town.
Yeah.
Johnny wants you back on in a week. And then he banged out 6 or 7 in a year and became famous. And the rest is history.
I'm told Barry Crimmins was the guy who started comedy.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Yeah.
Lenny was the most powerful comedian on stage, maybe still, I've ever seen. But my first impression of him, seeing him, I couldn't stop laughing. They were the type of laugh that you would run out of air and think you were going to have some sort of visit to a hospital. Just the power of him on stage was something I don't know that I've seen since. He couldn't just talk a restaurateur into doing something stupid.
Right.
He would mesmerize an audience with just stories and a level of power. So by the time you got there, he's still there.
Oh, yeah. He was still there, but at that point he was
still
flying.
May be there now.
He's still there, yeah. What time does he leave?
1:17. Our time.
Right.
Yeah.
He would go because he was starting to get work in LA. So he would, I don't know if he was getting work, he was just auditioning, but he would fly to Los Angeles on Sunday.
Sure.
And he would audition all week and pick up little roles, and then he'd fly back to Boston on Friday. He would sell out 4 shows Friday night, 4 shows Saturday night. And I believe Nick's Comedy Stop or Giggles, and then he would make, $15,000, and then he would fly back to LA in a fur coat, just completely spending every dollar he'd ever made, but being in LA and staying in a nice place and auditioning and getting nothing and coming back to Boston where he was hero.
Broadway Joe Namath of stand-up to the Boston area. You once said, quote, "My dad got into fist fights his entire life. Me and my brother did. Rage is a part of the Irish culture. It's hard to explain. My wife doesn't understand it." Is it that you think she should just get over it?
No.
This need to fist fight as a mature adult?
No, I think she's a healthy restraint on it. She doesn't shame me about it, but she explains to me that we have children, and if I were to get really injured or put in jail, it would affect the family. So she kind of tries to slow me down.
At what point during some of these moments for you do you actually sense, Oh, I just became my father.
Things just got heavy on the chat show. Jesus.
Because I have those moments every now and then where something will come out of and it's the exact verbatim.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I was telling my daughter the other day to change her attitude. Like, you got to change your attitude. And then I immediately went, that was the thing I hated the most about my father, because it's so disingenuous to think that somebody can have an emotional life and layers of things going on, and then as an adult you can just say to them, change that. Make that more of what I would like it to be.
And when you had the realization that that's what you hated, quote, most about him,
yeah,
what you must have turned on a dime and said to your daughter, oh geez, I'm sorry.
I didn't apologize, which I do. I'm a big fan of apologizing to your children because I think it shows them that you're human, and it models a really good behavior. But in this case, it took a second. It didn't hit me right away, and then I just let it go and said, I'm never going to do that again. But I think parenting is a work in progress. It's a lot of making errors, but I think that I try to really model, like, the same way I would behave with a good friend, I try to act with them. I don't try to, I wouldn't shame a friend.
Sure.
And I think parents will shame their kids,
yeah,
and they will really come down on them hard. They don't realize how they're, really, being aggressive towards them.
Yeah.
So I try to just remind myself that how I felt as a kid, where it was you started just defending yourself and blocking it out. And so it's, I would rather engage and be somebody, not a friend, because you have to be in charge, but you also don't have to intimidate.
Most of that I just heard like the parents from Peanuts.
That's the worst thing an interview has ever said to a guy. Is that in your notes? Humiliate the guy who just said he hates being humiliated? Or did you come up with that off the top of your head?
There's no off switch. Sorry.
Now, is that because you don't have kids?
Ice
or because
cold water.
Or it just wasn't?
People inspire. There's a weird Zelig thing with me. I really do suffer horribly from the Zelig, and it drives my better half completely insane. I take on people's personalities as I perceive them to be. And I thought, what is the worst, most ridiculously painful thing you could possibly say to him right now, as you were being as genuine as you are capable of?
Well, I just realized the chat show, here's what the chat show is about.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Here's what the chat show is about. Kevin Pollak asks you really dark, sensitive questions, and then as you answer in kind, he takes a giant dump on you. That's the paradigm. The setup and then the spike.
What? I would so love to do that show regularly and have people agree to come on. That would be the victory. I know.
I really felt like, because you said earlier it's part Charlie Rose, and I went, okay, we're taking a left down Rose Avenue right now. I'm gonna engage this. I'm gonna be vulnerable.
And you did.
I wasn't listening.
And you
to
were
anything
rewarded.
You just said it was like the Peanuts parents talking. I think in the annals of bad interviewing, that would go way at the top.
But you're the first guest to make me cry from laughter. So
you know what my father used to do when we were boring at the kitchen table? You'd be talking and he would go like this.
Oh no! No, he didn't.
Yeah.
No.
That was his move. Yeah.
Those of you listening only, Greg would put his hand under his head as if he were resting, and then that move where the elbow slips off the edge of the table. That's devastating.
Yes. My sister used to take dance classes, and it was all about running and then like jumping through the air. And my father would say to her, let's see what you learned today. And then she'd leave the kitchen and go down the hallway and run down the hallway into the kitchen. And as she began to jump, he'd point out the window and go, look at the dead bird. And we'd all look out the window and miss what she just did. And it was a big laugh, but you could also see a little look of hurt in my sister's eye.
She died a little bit each time.
It was all about him getting a laugh. Yeah.
How much dancing is she doing now?
Very little. Speaking of dancing, I had a party last night.
Did you?
Yes.
For your birthday?
for my birthday, and we cleared out the garage, and I got a black light, and we got the Dayglow markers, and we got a ball, a mirrored ball spinning around, and we did disco music, and we had a blast, and you were not there. Invited, confirmed, and then bailed.
Yeah.
And I want to know, and be honest with me.
Okay.
Will you be honest with me?
I'll try.
Why did you decide not to come? Was it because you didn't feel the invite was sincere enough? Did you feel that there wouldn't be enough of your peers there?
No.
Or did you have a legitimate
No, but
excuse?
I love that you read all those possibilities into it. The quick answer is a greater responsibility. That's the quicker answer. That's
Okay.
the quickest answer.
Right.
And now I'm happy to give you the
What are you, FDR? A
lengthy
greater
one.
responsibility? I had to create a jobs program for the West Side.
Almost correct. So, as you probably know, I've heard tell, I host a weekly poker game.
Oh, right.
It's been going on since I got this new house on the West Side, not too far from your home. All
Right.
the more reason why I should have been there. So
Right.
close.
So close.
And so I'm not going to say the exact night, because, well, many reasons, but every particular night per week, I've been hosting this game for 5 years.
Once a week.
Absolutely.
I'm in the neighborhood.
And you play poker?
Yes.
How did I not know this?
We had poker at the party last night. We had a poker table set up, and my friend dealt blackjack all night long.
Okay. There's that redonkulously adorable version of poker, and then
Yeah.
there's what we do at my house.
Right.
Okay. We have a professional dealer. We have a
No.
physical therapist who goes around the table with a forward-facing chair
That's
to
not
give
true.
massages. It's 100% true. It's catered by Lemonade. Stop me anywhere.
So it's the opposite of like what
what you
men
did
would
last
do
night.
if they played a poker game.
Well, these men enjoy it very, very
Yeah.
much. Yeah. Now, these are tricks I picked up from other people's regular poker games
Yeah.
around town. So it's kind of a thing. But you do play seriously enough to play in a game?
Yeah, what do you play? Texas Hold'em?
Just Texas Hold'em.
Okay.
It's a cash game, so there's buy-in and then
What's the buy-in?
rebuys, 500, 5 blinds. Nobody gets hurt.
I can't make it that night.
All right. It's all relative. To some people, that's a big game. To some people, that's a baby game.
Right.
In this town, who knows? At any rate, it's every mid-week-ish night, but the same night every week.
Yeah.
So the girl goes out of town. She's at the Walt Disney World right now. And I have this greater responsibility from the regular players who go, you got to have a game Saturday night.
Right, right.
And I cave.
I get that.
Because this group, these guys like yourself who are married with kids, they get a chance to get away and sit around guys talking shit for 5 or 6 hours.
You don't have to sell poker to me. It's the greatest. It's the greatest.
And once it
social
becomes
activity.
a weekly thing, I tell you,
Yeah.
there's a couple of guys in the group, and I'm one of them, that embarrassingly look forward to this social activity more than anything else in the week.
You
As a
realize
regular
you're
thing.
hosting your chat show right now.
We look forward to that poker game
Right.
way more than this.
Okay.
It's not even in the same realm.
Thanks again for coming on. By the way.
Yeah. Appreciate you being here.
What's the buy-in on the chat show? Celebrities in the poker game?
They come and go. The regulars are well, television Sam Levine, certainly.
Please.
There's a few. A lot of them don't like to be named. Do you remember the lyrics to a song you wrote while a member of 8th grade band called Dewey Echtel?
Yes. This Dewey Echtel was the art teacher in 8th grade,
Such a prick.
and he did the unfortunate name of Dewey Ekdahl. And I was in a band with a few of my friends, and there was a fair amount of drug use, and we used to write disparaging songs about our teachers. And Dewey Ekdahl's was to the tune of, I forget the song it's based on. Once there was a man named Dewey, 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 Dewey. He sailed his boat out past the buoy. Buoy, buoy, buoy. Dewey, Dewey. Ah. You know what song that's based on?
Not even
No
Sam
idea.
Levine can pull that one out. So this band went on to record, obviously.
Eli, yes, I have cassette tapes of us. We had a song called the M Escalator, like mescalinator. It was a lot of hidden drug messages in our songs.
I didn't catch any in the Dewey number. Hidden drug.
No, the teacher ones were just about the teachers.
That didn't seem that disparaging, by the way.
It goes on to become more vicious.
Really?
Yeah.
Was there a moment there where you thought about taking this musical career of yours any further?
I can't sing.
Well, I'm not sure why you felt the need to point that out.
I was in a club in high school then called the Penguin Club. And we had a mission because they had these morning meetings on Friday and you had to come to school early to do them.
Yeah.
And you know, the jocks would get up and plug their games that were playing that weekend, and you know, the yearbook committee would get up and make an announcement. And so we hated it so much. We all had the worst voices, so we came with the Penguin Club, and we would go up and we would sing songs like Beach Boys songs.
Wow.
And just torture everybody at the morning meeting.
That's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Holy crap. So you love that.
I love that, and
Yeah.
still keep in touch with those guys.
You do?
Yeah.
Since what grade?
Spoke to one of them yesterday. That was 9th grade.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
I have, I think there's only 2 left of the original core since I'm 11, of a group of 5 of us.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind of music? Doo-wop?
No, we didn't sing, just a band of merry men.
Oh, no music?
No.
Just guys you hung out with?
Just the idea that you're in touch with anyone
Right.
from that long ago.
Yeah.
Being a 50-year-old now.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I read that your dad was a member of the New York Friars Club, took you to the real comedy roast in New York when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Please tell.
Yeah. Those were great. And it was funny because we were raised to not really curse, and you know, it was rough in some ways, but it was also very Catholic and restrained. And so all of a sudden he starts taking me these roasts, and I'm like 13 years old, and you're getting up and you have Freddie Roman telling cunt jokes, and Malzy Lawrence calling women whores, and you know, faggot and dick sucking, and I was just like, wow, this is my dad's world.
How old?
Like 13, and I was like, he spent every day at the Friars Club, so I just thought, this is how these guys just talk all the time. And I fell in love with the Borscht Belt comics at that point. You know, all those guys, Dick Capri, and I still have so much respect for the crispness and the professionalism and the presentation, and
Yeah.
you know, they're just, I learned a lot from them about how to take a crowd, because they were often put in really adverse situations, the roast being one of them, where you get up and, you know, it all sounds fun, but people don't realize the audience at those Friars roasts was a lot of old Jews from the garment district that belonged to the Friars Club. They were not as hip as the Deus at all.
No.
So you didn't really kill with that material. You got moans, you got people shut down, and then you had the cackling of the other comedians.
Losing their shit.
Losing their shit.
I just want to give the audience the what would you call it? The average, the base of one of these jokes, because I remember hearing it and I felt, well, I'll never forget that. But this was not special, not outrageous. This was the average. Let's say we're roasting evil Dr. Kenny Chen, whose wife that everyone in the room knows is Gloria. The average roast joke would be, it's an honor here, of course, to roast my dear friend Kenny Chen. It's a beautiful venue that was chosen for the occasion. Not the original venue, in case you didn't know. Originally, we were going to hold the festivities in Gloria's cunt, but it only seats 200. And
then you'd hear that laugh, and you'd hear.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, these were luncheons.
These
They
were luncheons.
Yeah, at the Hilton.
These were luncheons.
at the Hilton on 52nd Street,
Yeah.
and there was no press. If there was, they didn't write about it.
There was no cameras. There was nothing written about it.
And no women.
No.
No women until a very late year. And then you had the writers like Cindy, what was her name, who wrote the column for the Post
That I
all
wouldn't
those
know.
years. And so they would quote jokes, but never the dark ones.
Sure.
So there was this awareness that it was going on, but there was no, now the Comedy Central does it. What's missing is that there was familiarity before. The dais all knew each other.
Yeah, and also the ones now, they don't even, 90% of them don't know the person they're roasting.
No.
They're just told to come out and roast at somebody.
Right, and they don't write the jokes themselves.
There's no
they have
connection.
teams of joke writers.
Right.
Even the Comedy Central roast itself will give the roasters jokes to say about people that they don't know.
Yeah.
But, I'm not knocking them. They're funny as shit. I really enjoy the Comedy Central roast, but it's a different beast than the Friars Club one was.
I find them hellish to do. I did too.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
I did too. And I enjoyed the Rob Reiner one, but that was like a luncheon at the Hilton, right? The Rob
No, that
Reiner
was evening. The Friars, the
evening?
ones that they put on Comedy Central, they did those in the evening.
The Rob Reiner one was not for Comedy Central.
It was.
No.
100%.
You sure?
It was for the Friars Club, but broadcast
Yeah, there was
on
a
Comedy
period
Central.
where first it was just the Friars Club, then there was a period where it was still the Friars Club roast done their way at the Hilton that were broadcast on Comedy Central.
That's the Rob
Then
Reiner.
they
Yeah.
cut out the Friars entirely, and now
Yep.
it's just Comedy Central.
Yep.
Right.
They had a 5-year contract with the Friars.
There were so many people roasting him that there were 2 levels of
Oh,
tables.
yeah.
So I
that's
find
a lot.
myself at the back table.
Yeah,
So when I finally went up, the only joke I remember saying, because you got to hit the other people on the dais,
yeah.
was great to be here, real honor. I'm in the second row, Rob, in case you couldn't see me from your seat. Second row. Michael Spinks is in the first row. Of course, he doesn't know that.
And then you change your eye direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not for nothing, KP. You were in the second row, but there was a third row with this guy right there.
Oh,
He
no
was in-
kidding.
There were
Yeah.
3
Third row
rows.
doesn't speak, right?
Third row, we said nothing. It was. I'll tell you who I was in
Your
this third row
extras.
with. I shit you not. AJ Benza.
Oh, my goodness.
The old E
Right.
television personality, and Rob Van Winkle, who you would know better as Vanilla Ice. I was those guys flanking me back in the cheap seats on the dais.
Yeah. And you guys were friends back then, or just
No, that's the
coincidence
night
you were
I
both
met
on?
this guy. He was sitting right in
That's
front of
when
me.
you met each other.
First time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Sure.
People really bond on those roasts because you got a lot of time. You're sitting near each other talking.
Oh,
Yeah, they took those lengthy commercial breaks.
Yeah.
The only other one I did was for Shatner, and he sat in the chair from the Enterprise that they brought in from a museum
right.
in Seattle.
Right.
And we were just pounding the Kettle One, is mostly what I remember.
Yeah.
And bombing. I foolishly went up and sincerely roasted him because I felt I had a connection to him.
Yeah.
And I was the only one, because it was a Comedy Central roast. I
Yeah.
was the only one who actually knew him,
Yeah.
other than George Takei, who just came out and was George Takei. And I think Nichelle Nichols said a couple things, but it was also, Greg Giraldo and guys, great comics who just never met him, they don't know him.
Right.
Who were just being the most disgustingly hilarious with no actual emotional connection.
Yeah.
And they were killing, and I went out with an emotional connection and just bombed.
Yeah.
It was the worst set I've had in front of a television audience, maybe ever.
Yeah.
Had to have been.
Yeah.
And I just remembered that it was the only time also I experienced the backstage conversation with the agents, the representatives, who do their best with sincere faces to tell you it wasn't as bad as you think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're just 100% wrong, and you think,
Uh,
do I want these guys in my life or do I
Right.
not? Because there's a part of me that thinks this is pretty cool, that they're trying to cheer me up.
it's a mixed emotion
Yeah.
because on the other hand, you want to know that the people that you're communicating with are based in reality on some level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who go, oh, geez.
Did they air you on the show?
Very little.
Because I did the Chevy Chase roast, and Chevy refused to acknowledge us. He literally, we're roasting over here, he's facing straight forward with mirrored sunglasses on, would not turn his head, didn't laugh once. The audience became confused and cold because of it. And I went on second to last after 3 hours of taping.
Every topic's been taken.
Every topic's been taken. The crowd is dead. I sucked it. It was so bad they didn't air it. They chopped out 4 comedians because towards the end it got so bad we were just gone.
Yeah.
I think Todd Barry. No, I don't want to name names, but there was like 4 of us that got chopped out entirely.
You just went ahead and named Todd Barry.
You know what? I'm wrong. Todd Barry aired and he did very well.
Thank you for clarifying. I've noticed so far you enjoy sitting on the show uncomfortably while I do some things without you.
You're going to read an ad.
I'm going to read an ad.
Good.
Yeah. You want to check your phone?
Nope. I wanted to see you read the ad.
Alrighty. Kenny, am I wrong? Is it about that time?
Yeah.
Wow. The crow's nest was just on it. Today's ad. Today we're sponsored by the fine folks at Howl.fm. What the fuck are you talking about, you ask? It's like Netflix for podcasts. With Howl Premium, you get exclusive access to a brand new Howl original comedy series like The Mysterious Secrets of Uncle Bertie's Botanarium, starring Jermaine Clement of Flight of the Conchords. Now, we've done these ads a couple of times. Folks, I don't know what the fuck you're waiting for. This opportunity is absolutely kind of amazing. Because if you're a comedy fan and you're tuning in to Earwolf, and you're not a part of Howl FM, if I may, you're an asshole. How's that for pressure? Please redeem the promo code. Make sure you create your own account on the web at howl.fm. The promo code, I know, hard to imagine, Kevin, Kevin. It's weird how they're all personalized when you hear this ad read by other shows. Remember to hear The Mysterious Secrets of Uncle Bertie's Botanarium along with dozens of original audio miniseries. Go to howl.fm. How about Mark Maron's library? That's where you're going to go. All the archives from WTF. Mark Maron on all the Earwolf shows like Comedy Bang Bang, How Did This Get Made? They're all at howl.fm. Over 120 hours of new original shows and audio documentaries like The Complete Woman, Finding the Funny with the Sklar Brothers, and Fruit. More than 80 comedy albums. I have to ask, what the fuck are you waiting for? Howl.fm. Promo code Kevin, 1 month free trial. We thank them for sponsoring this show. A teacher, Greg Fitzsimmons. Mr. Jones.
Morrow Jones.
On the other hand, left a different lasting impression on you than one who got a song in his honor.
Right.
Let's talk about Jones a little bit.
Well, I had a tough time in high school, grade-wise. I had been going to one school, and I was asked to leave that school, so I went
for fighting?
Just in general. Yeah, I don't know about fighting as much as just in general.
Kicked all the Irish kids out?
What's that?
They kicked all the Irish kids out?
I think there was some drug use, and there was some skipping of school, and there was a lot of torturing of teachers to the point where they moved me around from different classes. I wasn't kicked out, but it was strongly suggested I leave.
I was smoking a tremendous amount of pot early in high school.
Yeah.
Was that the drug of choice?
Yes.
Sure.
But there were others.
Alrighty.
And so I ended up at this other school that was much more strict, much more academically challenging, and I couldn't handle it. I just didn't have a good work habit, and I had ADHD and stuff that I'm actually medicated for today, which I could have definitely used back then. And I was doing bad, but then I had this one creative writing teacher, Morrow Jones, who just, we were studying Shakespeare, and he said, you got to write a paper on Shakespeare. So I rewrote Scene 2, Act 2 of Romeo and Juliet, the balcony scene, as a modern day Italian, because they're Italian, in Brooklyn. And I wrote it, and he said, while this doesn't display an understanding of Shakespeare in any way, it's very funny. Have you thought about doing this for a living? Boom.
Like towards the end of The Natural when the lights blow out in the ballpark.
It was
Just a
like the
ridiculous
first time I
explosion.
felt like I could do something that I was acknowledged in a place where I was made to feel really dumb and bad. I took it and I held on to that, and it really became, my mission was not to become a stand-up comic. I was obsessed with stand-up comedy, but it didn't exist in 1980 the way it does today.
Right.
We would go down to the village, and we'd go to the different clubs and watch the stand-up comics, and I collected the albums. But to me, it was, I'm going to be a writer. And so I went to college and I studied English and creative writing, and I was gonna, I don't know what I was gonna write for.
How'd you get into college with the shit grades?
There's a special program at Boston University called the College of Basic Studies. And if you get very high SAT scores but very low grades, they take you in and they put you into this kind of remedial class where it's like high school. For the first 2 years, you're with the same group of kids, and you go English, science, history, social science, and they send you through. And then it's very structured. They tell you 1 out of 3 kids is not going to make it through. And I thrived. I did great. I took a year off after high school.
That's when you went to the...
When I went to Europe.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I was ready, and I loved it. And I really do, and I keep in touch with Mauro Jones to this day.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what the research said. He reached out to you shortly after the first time you were on Letterman?
Right,
Yeah.
on Letterman.
Yeah. But had it been a while before he reached out that time?
But yeah.
So what was that like? Because that experience I've never had, where a teacher who actually affected you. Because I was bored out of my mind at school.
Yeah.
And there was one creative writing teacher also for me who turned me on to early Samuel Clemens before he goes commercial with Mark Twain.
Right.
And that dark, sardonic, like a social satirist of another world.
Right.
Level of writing.
Yeah.
Other than that, bored out of my fucking mind.
Yeah. It's amazing how a piece of literature can get you so excited, and it really bums me out that kids aren't reading as much because of the cell phones and everything. The profound changes that can happen with one book, something like Basketball Diaries or The Outsiders, and how it can just make you feel like, God, I feel like that too, and it gives you hope and it gives you direction, and you know.
Have this conversation with your kids? Did you?
Well, they read a lot. My kids read a lot.
Because you encouraged it?
I think then when they watch you read a lot, they do.
Right.
They say that's the number one factor in them reading is seeing you read. And you know, what's great is now they have series of books. If a kid likes, there's that whole, you know, obviously the Harry Potter books, and then there's one about Greek mythology, like it's set in modern times, but it's based on Greek mythology.
Wow.
I forget what they're called. You would know what they're called.
Cliff's Notes.
Cliff's Notes? So if they like one, they're going to read 5.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, it's terrific.
So when that teacher does reach out after the Letterman appearance, whatever, is it just instantly fantastic?
Yeah, it was very moving, and he quoted some things I'd said. There was a Thomas Hardy book where I changed the name of the lead character to, instead of Christella, it was Crustacean. I don't remember that. He remembered quotes from it. And you got a picture, teachers have 100 new students every year.
Yeah, how's that possible?
And this is 15 years before, or 12 years before, and he remembers that. It was very touching. And so I wrote a book and I printed his letter in my book as sort of this turning point moment.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by the book and the genesis, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about it. I'm sure when you did the original press tour, you talked a little ad nauseum, but maybe it's been enough time where you wouldn't mind
I'd love
talking
to.
about it again, because I felt like the genesis of it was something I hadn't heard before.
Yeah.
In terms of why a funny person writes a book.
Well, I had a collection of letters I found in my aunt's basement in the Bronx, and it was my mother had kept.
Give me a little bit about how, first of all, you even find this fucking box in your aunt's basement in the Bronx.
Well, there was.
What are you doing in there?
We store stuff. When we moved to New York to LA, we just stored all our crap in my aunt's basement, and my mother stored stuff there as well. So
So what is the deal with your aunt who allows people to store shit in her basement?
she's living in the house she was born in, and it's a 3-story house, you know, one of these Archie Bunker type houses, and the basement is completely empty, and so everybody takes the liberty of using it as a storage unit.
Right.
So we're down there trying to sift through the clutter, and I come across this box, and it's letters, report cards, newspaper clippings when I'd been arrested, and it was all letters when I was in trouble at school, and they were funny stories. Like my parents, there's an Irish Catholic celebration of when you get into trouble if it's funny in any way. And so they would save these horrific letters, almost like it was a trophy case. And so I start sifting through, and I'm cracking up, and my report card's D's and everyone, and Greg can't stay awake in class, and Greg's staring out the window. Greg was high. and
So your parents found this hilarious?
Yes.
See, most parents, I mean, how do you react that way when you get troubling letters from?
Oh yeah. About my kids? Yes.
That's hilarious to you.
Yes. Because I know they're going to turn out all right. You know? If they're doing something rebellious.
Also, in your childhood, you had that wonderful moment of seeing your mom slap a nun.
Yes. Not a nun, but a teacher.
She was a
teacher, yeah.
I don't know why it was reported as a nun. It actually was reported as a nun.
Nun's funnier.
Well,
Probably in a lie.
Caught me in bad research. Anyway, so stay on track. So you get the box. Go back to your mom slapping a teacher, because please don't let me forget the mom slapping a teacher, because I love that fucking moment too. So your kids are going to be okay, but in the meantime, you find this box. It's got these letters. Do you take sort of your own personal moment when you realize that your mom held on to these things, because you didn't know this box existed?
No. I thought it was just going to be all report cards. I didn't know there'd be other stuff.
You're tickled beyond belief now.
Yeah, I read it, and I just realized that, like, it reminded me of the fun we had at the kitchen table. One of the things that was in there was, I was maybe a sophomore in high school.
Sure.
And I grew up in Tarrytown, New York, when there was a golf course next door called Westchester Country Club, where they played the Westchester Classic every year, played the US Open there. So we skip school and we go to the tournament. And we're, hanging out and having fun. And the next day, we're at the dinner table, a day after this. And my father looks over and he goes, "How was school yesterday?" And I got a sunburn. And I said it was great. And then he goes, "Really?" And he pulls out the front page of the New York Times sports section. And Gary Hallberg is standing looking at a shot he just hit. Over his shoulder is me going like this.
You idiot.
And he looks at it, and I think, I'm fucked.
Sure.
He starts laughing. My mother starts laughing. We laugh for 5 minutes, and then we had dessert.
What was dessert that night?
Key lime pie.
Correct. Key lime pie.
Good research.
Yeah. Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's spectacular.
Yeah, isn't that great?
You had a good day yesterday? Did you slide the newspaper over? Just think of the preparation for him. Let's see, should I put the paper onto the table?
Not only that, my mom worked for the New York Times at the time.
Right.
She got the photographer's original
negative,
glossy negative. She had it printed and presented it with the newspaper article.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's pretty spectacular.
Yep. Talk about good research.
Yeah. So you see these things in the box and you think, well, this is a book.
No, actually, I first thought, somebody asked me about 6 months later to do a one-man show for the New York Comedy Festival. And I thought, God, I don't have a one-man show. And then I started thinking, each of these letters is almost like a chapter. It's like the beginning of a scene. And so I went on stage at PS1 in New York, and I did like a 1-hour show where it was punctuated by reading the letters and putting them up on a slide. And I loved doing it, but then I also said, I'm not going to keep doing it because I don't want to be the guy who invites you to a one-man show.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I just shelved it after 2 performances, and it sat there for maybe 10 years. And then I got approached to do a book, and I thought, well, the book's written. That's it. So I put together an 80-page book proposal with the letters in it. Got a bidding war going. Everybody loved the idea. And then I wrote the book for Simon Schuster.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The name of the book, of course, very long.
Dear Mrs. Fitzsimmons, Tales of Redemption from an Irish Mailbox.
Fantastic.
Publisher hated the title.
Sure.
Fought for it. Made a mistake.
Again, that honesty thing is kind of beautiful. Maybe the best thing about my book is the clever title. Might be the best thing about it.
Something to the middle?
How I slept my way to the middle.
Right.
Sure.
You just want to take a time out to throw yourself a little shout out?
You compelled me to break all the rules. To scold the guest, try to hurt them in any way possible.
To ignore them periodically?
And then take a few moments about my own exceptional work. But I'm not going to read the emails. I'm going to give you that.
What?
I'm not going to read the emails
Oh.
until things go horribly, horribly wrong.
So if you start reading emails, I know the interview's not going well.
Yeah.
I do that. I have a thing on my podcast called Overheard, and it's people email me things they've overheard,
Right.
which is great.
Sure.
Great bit. But if I'm doing them, no. If you're listening and you may be a guest on the Fitz Dog Radio podcast, if we start doing overheards, you're not a good guest.
That is important. I don't think we did any when I was recently on your show.
We did. I didn't even look at the script.
No, you didn't.
No.
We just had a conversation.
Yep.
What's my fucking problem? Give me a little bit about your mom and the teacher, and as much of the backstory as possible, because I don't have these memories as a child where my fucking parents stood up to anything.
Right. Oh, really?
Really?
Well, Jews are much more like
Accommodating?
see World War II. Is that the worst thing you can say to a Jewish person?
So we're easily round up? I'm not sure I understand the point of the conversation is.
Well, there was a Quentin Tarantino movie where you guys fought back a little bit. What was it
Our
called?
own Sam Levine is in the film.
Are you?
Yes, Inglorious Bastard.
Oh, of course. Right. Good job.
Oh, thanks, pal. It was real memorable.
So my mother grew up going to a Catholic school in the Bronx, and she went to the same school as my mother-in-law, which
Jesus.
we didn't realize until much later on.
Yeah,
It's a very thin gene pool in that neighborhood.
clearly.
And so she got slapped around a lot. I mean, it was really, a lot of the nuns they went into the nunnery for whatever reason. Maybe they were lesbians or whatever. And then they were told, you're going to be a teacher. And they were like, I got into this because I don't like kids. And so they would just slap the shit out of these students.
Right.
So I came home one day from school and my kindergarten teacher had slapped me.
You're 5.
Right. I was a little rowdy.
You weren't even smoking pot yet.
No. So my mom gets into the car and she drives to the school.
How did it come up with the conversation with your mom that you had been slapped?
I was crying. Came home, I was red-eyed. I was very upset.
Honey, what happened? And you say,
My teacher slapped me, and she said, "Get your coat." And we got in the car. We drove to the school, and there was some kind of a meeting with the teachers going on in the gym. And my mom walked in, and the teacher was tall. I remember she was like, a good 5'10", and my mom was, 5'4". And she just walked right up to her, didn't say a word, and just slapped her across the face and said, "Don't ever touch my kid again." And in front of all the other teachers. And we just walked out.
Did she walk you in by the hand for this?
Yeah. And then we drove home, and I just remember staring at her the whole way going, I love this woman.
Superhero.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Those kind of moments just from mom, or did you have any from dad too?
Oh, yeah.
Because dad feels like he might have been quick to
Dad was a little quick.
defend the cave.
I can remember at one point we were driving. Well, I don't know if this was defending me as much as just showing his rage. We were driving through the city. We got to the Triborough Bridge, and there was supposed to be a merging going into a lane to pay the toll. And there was a gypsy cab on our left, and he was trying to angle out my dad. And it was summertime, windows were open, and my dad, as they got closer and closer, my dad, who was 6'3", tough dude, and he looks at the guy and he goes, "I'll rip your fucking throat out." And the guy just felt it and just stopped, and my father kept going. But that's how he dealt with people. He told me one time we were in a bar, and he was drunk, and he said to me, "See that guy over there with the red shirt?" He goes, "Go find out his name."
How old are you?
I'm like 16, and I'm like, "Why?" And he goes, "I'm gonna have him killed." Like he thought he was like this mafia guy. He drove a Lincoln Town car, and he hung out with tough guys.
Meanwhile, he's a radio host,
He's a radio host.
right?
Yeah.
And a popular one.
And very likable on the air, very lighthearted.
Who brings his 16-year-old kid into a bar? Let's start there.
And then tries to arrange a hit.
Find out that guy's name.
Yeah.
Why is that, Dad? I'm going to have him killed. And do you think he's kidding at 16?
No, he believes it, but he just, if anyone slighted him, he got fucking crazy. You know, it was like, and I'm the same way. I get crazed. It's like an insecurity or whatever that you just feel like you already feel like maybe you're not worth something, and when somebody else points it out, you rage against it.
Sure.
Like doing this talk show.
I see.
Chat show. I'm sorry. Chat show.
Now, your father was a hell of a pool player, right?
No, I am.
Oh, you're the pool
Yeah.
player. I thought he
Yeah.
taught you. No, I guess I made that up.
Now your research is
spotty.
Is so almost great.
No, that had nothing to do with the research. That's me
Yeah.
misremembering a conversation you and I had about the 9-ball
The 9-ball tournament.
tournament at the Friars.
Right.
Yeah.
They would have inter-club tournaments in the city, and it would be like the Players Club, which is all the actors, and it was the Union Club, which was all the you have to be related to Union
Sure.
generals. The Harvard Club, and so we had our team, and my partner was Paul, who was the guy in Goodfellas?
Servino.
Paul Servino, who is a fantastic pool player.
Wow.
And so we would go around the city and we would play against all these other clubs, and we kicked ass. And so then there was like just an open 9-ball tournament among them all, and I won the tournament.
Again, how old are you?
At this point, I'm like 23, but I was in acting school in the city, so I had a lot of time free, and I would go to the Friars Club every day, and I'd work out and I'd shoot pool.
You just kind of threw out I was in this acting
Right,
school in the city.
right.
So we did kind of brush over the beginning of the stand-up. It happened during college,
Right,
right? So you're in Boston in that comedy scene.
yeah.
So you were going to shows and seeing other comedians?
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and then I
Because
was
you were
doing...
going to be a writer, and now, because, you know, my better half is a writer, and you can't get her on stage unless you point a gun at her.
Right.
And for some writers, there is no interest, and for other writers, there's a secret interest.
Yeah.
Were you of the secret kind?
No, not at all. I was...
You were the zero interest kind.
No. I was total interest.
Oh!
I was, you
Because
know...
when you sidetracked into the writing, as you mentioned earlier, but it's, you know, to put yourself out there, it wasn't about performing. I thought I was going to be a writer.
Yeah, but it wasn't, I think it was very much my parents looking at what I had to offer and saying, you know, you're not going to end up doing something that's linear. You know, you should go into maybe write. I could write well. I wrote good essays, and I always wrote short stories. I wrote a James Bond script when I was like 12. And so they said, you know, this is the way to go. And stand-up really wasn't something, like now kids go to college. You can get a degree in stand-up comedy now.
No, you can't.
Yes, Emerson University, you can get a degree in stand-up comedy. And so, can you
God.
imagine spending 40 grand a year for your kid to become, I mean, are you shitting me? So at the time, I was, you know, studying writing, but then going to the clubs, doing open mic nights, and they'd have contests at the college that I'd enter.
Yeah.
And then by the time I was a senior, I was really out every night doing stand-up and then going to class during the day. And it never, ever was a thought. If a comedian in Boston used the word career,
Oh, forget it.
you'd punch him in the neck. It just was not, that wasn't the way we looked at it.
Right.
It was just like getting stage time was like, it was just this amazing gift. Like every time I walked on stage, I just felt like, I can't believe they're letting me do this.
Right.
And I would just, you know, I would spend all day writing jokes. I'd tape it, I'd listen to it, and I would just, and it was just a ride. It was nothing but a ride. I didn't know where it was going. I certainly didn't think this is what I'm going to, you know, 26 years later, I'm going to have a mortgage and kids and, you know, this is going to be it. So it was weird. I just jumped in for the experience.
Right.
And I never had a job. Boston was so hot at that time.
Oh, yeah.
They're in the comedy boom. There was so many rooms that if you had a car and 15 minutes of material, you could make a living. You could make $400 or $500 a week cash, no taxes.
Easy.
And we'd just hang out all day and we'd see movies and smoke some pot, and then we'd go out at night, drive to Maine one night, Providence the next night, New Haven the next
Yeah,
night.
there were so many surrounding suburban gigs.
Yeah.
It was very similar to San Francisco at that point, which
Right.
is where I had started, which is why Boston was like a sister city in terms of the stand-up comedy boom
Right.
of the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I never had a job. I just went from college into doing stand-up comedy.
And then at what point does it make complete sense to go to New York?
Well, my dad had died, and I wanted to be back there for my mom. And
Young
also,
too. He died young, like 50,
yeah, he was
53?
like, yeah, he was 53, and so I wanted to be there. And also, I had gone to a summer program at the neighborhood playhouse the summer before.
Oh, wow.
And I decided I loved that school. I loved the Meisner technique, and so I signed up and I did a 2-year program. And so I was in New York doing that, doing stand-up at night, flying out and doing colleges on the weekends, and I was busy for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And just loved New York.
Before you did that summer at the neighborhood playhouse, what time on stage acting had you done?
None.
None. So where is it in you that, well, the stand-up's going well, it's only natural that I should try some theater
Yeah.
as an actor?
Yeah, I think it was about maybe wanting to do TV acting and
And you thought
film
theater
acting.
training would be?
And it wasn't. You know, looking back, I think it was an amazing experience. I think emotionally, if you were going to accounting, doing an intense 2-year Meisner technique is like therapy.
But it's the antithesis to me of the stand-up comedy lifestyle and use of the word technique,
Right.
quite frankly.
Yep.
There's no discipline other than what you put on yourself in stand-up comedy.
Right.
And there's nothing but discipline waiting for you at a theater.
Right.
So maybe you needed?
I felt like I didn't have movement skills. I didn't have voice skills. I felt like there was a vulnerability missing to my stand-up. And by going to the acting school, I was just able to, I think, listen to the audience more. I mean, Meisner is all about listening and answering and reacting in a natural way without being in your head. And I think that's exactly what I needed in my stand-up. So it helped my stand-up a lot.
Yeah.
But it did not help my acting, because that kind of acting is useless when you're going in for a sitcom. You know, like really being emotionally planted and can I, you know.
Why can't you be in the moment when you say, Harry, get out of here?
Right. Harry, like it was very like, it was frustrating to start auditioning for stuff and be as bad at it as I was. I've never been a good auditioner. And I think I probably would have benefited from a bunch of auditioning classes. Did you do that, or did you just study acting?
I did not study acting. I did not study auditioning. I studied no technique whatsoever, ever.
No kidding.
Not proud of it. Not,
Well, you didn't need it,
saying
so-
it as a thing.
Yeah.
I hated school so much. The idea that performing and any nature of it would be organized into a classroom was the antithesis of where I wanted to
Right.
be, and also I was maybe afraid secretly of rejection
Yeah.
from a teacher
Right.
who's not a working actor
Yeah.
in my mind.
Yeah.
Sorry, who are you again that you're teaching acting, and why aren't you working?
Yeah.
Didn't seem like just enough sort of defense I would put up around the idea that I might be found a fraud.
Right.
And the first person I met with, a manager, came to LA, knew a bunch of stand-ups, big names, who came through San Francisco, and they said, when you get to LA, I'll introduce you to Bud. And I got set up at the Improv pretty quick. And then the notion was, if you want to get into acting, you gotta go get some classes. Not
Yeah.
gonna do that. Then you gotta get an agent or manager. How are you gonna do that? Well, they come through the Improv and see you perform.
Yeah.
First one that saw me perform said, come to my townhouse and read a couple scenes. Let me see what you got during the day, you know. She was a manager of note at the time. This is like 1983. And I go to her townhouse. She gives me a scene, which I later understand to be sides. And she says, go in the outer room there and get comfortable with those, and then let me see you read them. Like I need you to perform the scene. Didn't know what any of that meant.
Yeah.
I did the scene for her, and she said, quote, listen, this is not for everyone, acting. So you'll probably have a great career as a stand-up.
Really?
Yes.
Well, you'd never done it before.
True. But the only reason I felt I could be an actor was because I'd been doing impersonations from the get.
Yeah.
And when I did an impersonation, it was a possession. I walked like the person.
Yeah.
I felt like the person.
You got into character.
To this day, when I do Albert Brooks, I think faster and funnier than I do in my own thoughts and comedy voice.
Yeah.
So it's a full-on performance and portrayal. And it was so easy and natural to me that's the only reason I think I had an ear for it. Right? So because it's on a page, I've got nothing to mimic.
Yeah.
I've got nothing to recreate. I've got to create it on my own. And that took forever to learn how to do.
Yeah. I mean, when you say learn, just through auditioning?
Yeah.
You learned by auditioning.
Hundreds of auditions. Hundreds. Where it felt like they were saying, not only are you not getting this, but how about anyone but you is going to get this.
Right.
And that was my acting school, was auditioning.
Hey, did you have coaches?
Nope. I'd get together with Carvey sometimes and a few other comics, and he was helpful. He would say, just find whatever specific, just be as specific as you can in any choice you make about a beat or a moment in the scene.
Yeah.
That's what's going to make it connect. Stuff like that was helpful.
Yeah. That's so tough. A phrase like that you hear so often, but it's like I can remember being in Little League and sucking and them going, just keep your eye on the ball. And I kept missing, and I just never connected the phrase to neurologically what you're supposed to do.
Right. Actually, look at the ball.
Right, and that's literally what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, keep your eye on the ball felt like a pat on the ass. Like, it's going to be all right.
Right.
Keep your head down.
Yeah.
When you're golfing.
Yeah, and then, but with acting, pay attention to the details.
Just be specific. And forevermore, in the writing or acting, and now fortunately directing, it's all about where are the specifics.
Yeah.
What's going to dial this in to me to care about it, and the audience too.
Yeah.
But the greatest lesson were from great actors. That's where I learned, in the Earn While You Learn. Few Good Men. I confess to J.T. Walsh, one of the greatest character actors of all time, in my opinion. Played Markinson in the film. In this trailer, I confess. I said I'd done, I think, 7 movies prior. Avalon, some good films. But I felt like I completely bluffed my way through the process. Because all I could do was just be natural at it without being intimidated by cameras. That's all I had. So I confessed this to J.T. Walsh. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Everyone's a movie star on this set. And I've got a wildly important part. Aaron Sorkin wrote it as the conscience of the story, this character. He says, you're already doing a technique that people go to acting school their whole lives to try to master, and you've already got it. It's called less is more. You're already doing that. Mm-hmm. There's a second half to it, which is nothing is best. Less is more.
Wow.
Nothing is best. If you can do nothing in a scene and be interesting, you win.
That's Richard Kane's whole. He put out a great training video about acting, and it was that.
Talked about nothing is best or just less is more?
Nothing is best. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so that kind of changed everything.
Yeah. Wow. That takes the confidence, doesn't it?
It's unbelievable.
To sit back and let that moment happen without doing much.
Yeah. In fact, I didn't feel like a pure stand-up until I took a turn and started telling real-life stories. Like when I did impressions, I never did what if Jack Nicholson were a busboy at Michael, something like this. There was always scenarios that I would somehow put them in that was a little more interesting. But there was a turn where after A Few Good Men, I started doing far too many movies in the 90s and drifted away from stand-up, which was okay because it was sort of dying on the vine by 92, 93 anyways. The boom of the 80s had died and they'd gone from 350 clubs back down to 50. And then when I came back to stand-up around 2000, I decided to put together a new act. The new act was going to be, well, now I've worked with these people I've been impersonating, so I can tell a real-life first-hand anecdote from working with Nicholson and do Nicholson in the story.
Right, and which is great to go on late-night talk shows and panel and tell the stories.
The act came from doing 20 talk show appearances.
Right.
I realized when I went to put together a new act, I had 40 minutes of material I'd written for talk show appearances. So once I started doing the stories that involved the actual people, then it became this freedom. So when I took that on stage, I was actually telling stories, not with, I knew there were punchlines, but they weren't classically designed. Like you say in the research, you love the math of writing material. And the editing process is so great, which to me never really takes place until an audience tells you where it's working and where it isn't. But the idea that I was telling stories on stage and listening for the silence, because we were talking about the genuine moments of acting, whatever.
Yeah.
That's when I felt like I'd become a pure stand-up.
Yeah.
When I reveled in the silence.
Right. Instead of just chasing the laugh.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
Just knowing what was coming.
Yeah.
I directed this little documentary about Misery Loves Comedy, comedians talking about a myriad of topics. And a thing about listening for the silence, that the sort of power that starts to come over you.
And the audience feels it. They feel like I'm in the hands of somebody that is taking me somewhere, and I'm going to give over to it.
Because we're trained, get to the joke, get to the joke, get to the joke.
Yeah.
And when I got to LA, Leno, who was like Yoda in 83 to the other comedians, he would have a Thanksgiving feast for orphans, he'd call it. All the comedians who didn't go home to see their families would go to Leno's.
Uh-huh.
And it was big. It was probably 50, 60 of us.
No shit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he would hold court literally by the fire with a pipe. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
When I think about it as a visual.
Yeah.
Big fireplace, like the kind Mr. Burns would have.
Uh-huh.
And he would say, yeah, get to the joke. Where's the joke? You got to get to the joke then. He gave me the greatest advice ever when someone did a routine of mine at the Academy Awards in front of 1 billion people.
Right.
Remember the first time somebody famous took one of your bits?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
In front of 1 billion people, I went to Leno, he took my bit. I'm afraid that if I go do it live now, the audience is going to go, you're taking so-and-so's bit, thinking I ripped them off.
Yeah.
He said, oh, you want to, yeah, he took your bit, that's terrible. You want to know what you should do? You should probably write a new joke!
Yeah, right.
Just devastating at the time to hear that.
Yeah.
And couldn't have made more sense.
Right.
But the idea that we're trained, get the joke, get the joke, get the joke, and you actually create a moment where the audience is listening was incredibly powerful. So as an actor, you were a little out of your comfort zone in terms of you listen. And you were saying it taught you to listen as a comedian to the audience and just be more present.
To be more
Because we're not
present.
really taught to be present as stand-ups.
Right.
Keep it moving.
Yeah.
Because especially in Boston, they will fucking rip off your head.
Driving
down your neck, yeah.
Well, they listen, in Boston, they listen in the sense of the rhythm of the act. Like, one thing I learned there is always clip the laugh at the end. Don't let them finish laughing.
Yes.
And then start another one. Just, if you want to jump on it, as they're just crescendoing down, boom, hit another one, and then build up to an applause break or a pause that makes sense. But don't pause each time, or you lose the energy. The energy keeps dipping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you came out and started auditioning in LA. Because there was that moment of go west, young man, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going west a lot because I'd had a couple development deals.
Sure.
So I was finding myself flying back and forth a lot. Pilot seasons, I was flying in and out for auditions. And I just got to the point where, I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I asked her to marry me and said, part of the deal is I want to move to LA. And she'd lived in New York City here, and she'd never lived off the island of Manhattan in her entire life, and she was 30. So we bought a car and drove across the country to LA.
Thinking if we survive this drive.
Right.
Did you know that going in?
We fought on the GW Bridge. We were
leaving town.
Yeah, leaving town because we were videotaping the city on the way out.
The first fight was on the bridge.
I was telling her she wasn't getting the shot right, and she was crying because she was leaving home, and it's all on tape. And so, and we got out.
Didn't play that last night at the 50th?
Did not.
Could have.
Would have been nice.
Saving it for Italy.
And we got to LA, and I shit the bed for a couple years. I had no work. I mean, I auditioned, nothing happened. Couldn't get any writing work, nothing. And then
she hung in there.
She hung in there, and we did it. And then
you're leaving almost every weekend to do stand-up.
Oh, all the time.
Leaving her alone in a strange land.
Right.
That must have gone well.
Yeah, because when we were in New York, I was leaving, but at least she had her friends and
didn't know anybody out there.
Yeah. So it was rough, and then I started getting work, and then we had a kid, and and everything started working out.
4 years you did on the Ellen DeGeneres show as a writer?
No, 2 years, but I won 4 Emmys because I was a producer and a writer. And the 2 years I was there, we won both.
You're talking about the show she's doing now?
Right, the talk show.
How did you get involved in that? She just admired you as a stand-up?
Well, I'd been doing, I'd written on a bunch of shows before that.
Right.
And then I heard that she had got a talk show, and I was such a huge fan of hers. I loved her style and just so tight and so, defined. And I said to my agent, I really want to write on this show. And so I did something I'd never done before, which is I actually wrote a sample. I'd never written a spec script or samples or anything like that. And I wrote jokes, and it was effortless. Writing in her voice was so easy. And I turned it in, and I knew Mary Connolly, who was the showrunner. I knew from, I guess, the Craig Kilborn show she'd produced. And so she kind of put in the word for me, and Ellen read it, and they brought me in.
Boom.
Yeah.
Easy?
The job?
Yes. Those of you listening, he's just staring at me, hasn't moved a muscle. Have you talked about it yet, openly?
I talked about it on the Howard Stern show, and then I got a cease and desist order from the lawyers at Warner Brothers.
Did you really?
Saying that I'd broken my my confidentiality agreement or something.
I won't push that any further. So, how did the love affair with Howard Stern begin? Just a comic?
Well, what's funny is my dad, who we spoke about earlier, was one of the big radio guys in New York. So when Howard was on his way up, as you know, his MO was attack everybody else. So he would go after my dad a lot, and he was persona non grata in my house.
Don Imus, he went after the.
Yeah,
If
right.
you were doing well, he went after you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, so my dad, I can't say my dad hated him because I think my dad got what he was doing. And they had the same agent. They were both with Don Buchwald. And my dad was Don's first radio client. And so there was I think, some tension there.
Wow.
And so it went on. And then eventually my dad died. And Howard did this amazing eulogy about him on the air. He talked about how much he looked up to him. And he said, in a business where there's a lot of fighting and jealousy, that my dad was the one guy everybody liked. And that he learned a lot from him, mentioned things he learned from him. And
You hadn't been on the show prior to this moment?
no. And so I was like very touched, and everybody was telling me about it, and I heard it, and then I did this Aspen. And so then Jackie the Joke Man left the show, so they had this Jackie's chair that they wanted to fill with the comedian.
Right.
And so I had just won the jury award at the HBO Comedy Festival, and so I had a little buzz. So they brought me in as one of the 20 comics that came cycling through to sit in on the news and see if they could, contribute. And so I came in, and I was going in on a Tuesday, and on Monday it was a rerun, and I was listening to the show, and in the rerun, Howard Stern takes a shot at my dad.
Oh my God.
And I suddenly go, this is a setup. Howard's gonna fucking come after me. Didn't sleep the whole night.
Nope.
Showed up with my claws were sharpened. I was ready. If he's gonna come after me, I'm gonna come back hard.
Fuck yes.
And I came in, and it opened with him doing 15 minutes about what an amazing guy my dad was and blah, blah, blah. I mean, Howard's a real gentleman. He's a very kind guy. And all the attacking really was a character that he was doing that he'd somewhat left behind at that point. And he was gracious to me, and he asked me to come back the next week, and asked me to come in 3 days the next week, and it kept getting weeded down from comedians until it was really just me and Artie Lang. And we were kind of going head to head for the spot, and he rightfully got the job. I mean, I think he was the best thing to happen to that show ever. And I could have never contributed as much as he did. But then when I didn't get it, Howard said to me, doors open. Anytime you ever want to come in on the show, come in. And I've been in like over 50 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that ended up with a phone call saying, why don't you do your own show on the channel?
On the air. We're just shooting the shit. And he goes, hey, you want to do a show on the channel? And without hesitating, absolutely. So that was like 7 years ago.
Right.
Every Monday night since then.
And you're fortunate that there's a studio in Los Angeles.
Right.
That Sirius has.
Yes.
And that's obviously what made it easy for you.
There's that, and then they gave me this equipment that I can actually do it from my house also.
Which gives birth to the podcast.
Right. Yeah, the radio show is the kernel, and then the podcast is just an extension of it. We do both, but they're very different stylistically.
Yeah, one takes place in your garage. Greg,
Yeah.
Greg, I've been there.
Right.
Very
It's a studio.
impressive. Well, I think it's important that you call it that.
Right.
It's a garage.
Yeah.
I say that because there are things of a man married with kids extremely well organized
Yes.
into that garage.
Yes.
Is that the HD? No.
ADHD?
There you go.
Yes. I find that with the Chinese say you have to keep your house in order.
Do they?
Well, before I write, before I do anything, I have to go in the garage and organize to get it together. I got to go through my sock drawer, organize the garage, and then my mind is clear and I can go write.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So I've got me and my son build skateboards. So you saw all the skateboards that we have.
Yeah.
And then we have a lot of bikes because we have a lot of guests that come out and visit us, and we like to go to the beach on the bikes. So we have like 11 bicycles in the garage, and those all have to be neatly lined up.
Boy, do they. Within an inch of their life.
Yes. And
It
then
was wildly impressive, I gotta tell you.
Yeah, thank you.
I had seen organized garages before.
Yeah.
Don't think you're winning any awards. But I was wildly impressed, but also taken aback.
Yeah.
A little taken aback thinking either there was a little attention deficit happening or serial killer.
Yes. Yes. You saw the tarps.
I did not see the tarps. I might have been more concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And just like also the worst little folding table that we were sitting at.
It was not a folding table. That's solid oak. That was a real table. No, the chair, the folding chair.
Did you build the solid oak table?
I got it and I sawed the ends off because I felt it was too large. I've got a lot of power tools.
You also noticed.
Yes.
Again, lending to the serial killer.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm Dexter.
One of the players last night at the poker game heard a southern guy say, "Well, he's as gay as a bag of dicks." And we all then debated for maybe an hour, like idiots, I now realize, that a bag of dicks would be less gay and more serial killer.
I think so, because
Right?
if you wanted to use the dick, it needs to be attached to the base unit still.
Handful of dick
Yeah.
would be a homosexual trait.
Yeah, a mouthful, an assful.
Mouthful, assful.
Yeah.
Bag of dicks.
A bag of dicks is almost a statement that you don't want the dick working near you.
Jeffrey Dahmer had a bag of dicks.
Did he?
I'm just guessing
I'm sure.
because
Now, when you have a dick and it's been cut off, you gotta lose girth and size. You're probably seeing the shell of the dick.
But because of rigor mortis,
Ah.
pretty hard.
Pretty hard?
Guessing.
You think it gets hard?
Doesn't rigor mortis work for every orifice and organ?
Does it have to be hard at the time of the killing? Or will it get hard afterwards?
Does it retain its shape? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Well, that's-
Because I have heard when you die, sometimes you get an erection.
Well, that's one of the plot points in the movie Clerks, is that a guy dies with the hard-on.
That's
There
right.
was a plot in Clerks.
This just in. There's a plot in the Clerks film.
Is that in the DVD extras?
Yeah.
Later?
Yeah, it was a bonus feature, bonus scene, director's cut.
What is the writing regimen like? Because a guy with your organizational skills and a life devoted to writing
Yeah.
and wonderfully performing, thank you,
Thank you.
sincerely, you're a dynamic performer. Have you
Thank
been told
you.
this before?
Thank you very much.
It's
No,
true.
No.
You're a dynamic performer.
Thank you very much.
Compelling,
Yeah.
there's conviction, a great sense of joy while performing. I'd not studied you as a performer as I did over yesterday. Watch, thanks to the YouTube, the fine folks available. But just take everything you've ever done and put it in pieces
Right.
for us to watch. Yeah, there's a compelling nature on stage of a guy at play, at fun, that he has reworked and edited everything he says within a millimeter. And only I see that as a professional, that it's so refined. I mean, the audience certainly feels like they're in the hands of a pro because of it being so refined. But there aren't a lot of performers that I enjoy watching because of the amount of fun they're having. Honestly,
That's nice to hear.
no, it's
I'm glad that comes through.
it's one of the most important things.
Yeah, it really is.
Can't
you
be
can
an act.
forgive a lot.
Yeah.
You can forgive a lot when the guy's having fun because he's not trying to dominate or control you. He's trying to just express himself.
Not even selling.
Right. Right. And I think a lot of that, first of all, thank you for the kind words. But a lot of that is just that I do it a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I'm either on the road that week or I'm in town doing spots. And so it gives me, my writing really is done in broad strokes before I get on stage, and then finding the beats on stage.
Right.
I still record every single set. I listen to every single set, pen in hand, making notes. If I throw out a new line, I remind myself. If something's dying, I know to take it out. But the only way I can make the subtle changes is by doing it all the time. Like if I take a couple weeks off and I go back, I'm gonna forget all the filler, all the connective tissue that was building up around a new bit.
Right.
And I find if I'm working a lot, I always judge it by how quickly a bit goes from being, wow, I just, mined a new vein here. There's something here.
Yeah.
Into building it, shaping it, weeding it down, and it becoming the closing bit. Cycling through, it's now the closing bit. And then moving that closing bit to the front, moving everything down the line.
Yeah.
And so the more I do it, the faster the sort of flow of it becoming something that I feel like is tight enough to close with.
Your greatest fear is returning to a venue on the road and having the same act.
Well, if people are coming back to see you every year, then it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
You want to, I don't think it's a problem to do a couple bits that are really strong that they're probably going to enjoy seeing again. But I think for the most part, I want to give them stuff that's different. And also I get bored. If I'm doing the same act, I'm on stage, and it's especially if you're doing 5 shows in a weekend and you're up there for an hour each time and you're halfway through one of the hours and you're just going like, Jesus Christ, am I just doing this for the check? I like to think I'm doing it to grow and to express myself and to, get excited about writing and trying new stuff. Because this, there's no better high than stumbling on a new concept, turning it into a bit, and the audience liking it. It refreshes all your energy about doing what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. We started to riff on a bit that I shared with you.
Oh, right.
Do serial killers work out? Are they worried about high carb content? Do they belong to a gym?
Right.
Are they just working out at home?
Is there specific exercises that lend themselves to the act of killing? Forearm for the choking.
No, see, my idea for the choking, my idea is not about the betterment of what they do.
Yeah.
It's about, are they worried about staying in shape? Are they worried about their physical appearance? Now, if you're one of the pretty ones,
Yeah.
we've had a few.
Sure.
Ted Bundy.
The
Ted Bundy was striking.
the Warren Beatty of serial killers. No one got tail like Ted. No one. I don't think.
No, he lined it up and he knocked it down.
Completion for him sexually had a different connotation, I think, than you or I.
Right.
But yeah, do they have that sense of I can't have dessert tonight?
I'll feel guilty.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I feel like we're on a roll now. I don't want to end things. Do you feel like it's been coming up on 2 hours? Does that?
No, it's not.
Yep.
Wow.
Ridiculous.
That's good podcasting right there.
Well, it was and it wasn't.
See that? See what he has to do?
It's a monster.
Yeah.
By the way, that was a comment on me.
Well, you didn't do mail, so I feel really good about it.
I got one other one.
What if I started bringing up overheards right now?
Oh, you missed an opportunity, but you still got the laugh. Here's the only one I'll run by you.
Yeah.
I feel like I would write a check to do this with you for reals. Just putting it out there.
Right. I'm in.
I'm in desperate need of a new act. I think, small I, big T, I think, a search engine for 80% accuracy. Trying to go up against Google, but just like 80%.
80%.
I think.
Yeah.
No? Nothing there?
I like it because I find it boring to be able to find true facts all the time. You know, I mean, when you go on Google, like my kids, they'll never know what it's like to pull out an encyclopedia or have to call a friend to get information. And I think with I Think, what you're getting is a hunch. You're getting in the ballpark, but you've got to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little more work involved.
Well, Wikipedia is not that far from I Think.
That's true.
It is. It's, you know,
IMDb also. I get asked about projects. Oh, you'll be doing an interview, and they'll just look up the IMDb.
Right.
So, what's the Lady in the Roses? You know
Right.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's on your IMDb page. Is it? What do you
I-
want from me?
I think could possibly be it's your Aunt Jo from the Bronx.
Right.
And it's her take on every fact. You sit down with her for an hour a day for a month.
Right.
And you feed her topics, and verbatim you write her answers, and that's I Think.
So, if you said to her, the correct pronunciation of poinsettia.
She'd say poinsettia. There's an R at the end of that.
That's right. We didn't even get to talk about writing for what's called lovingly referred to as the black shows.
Yeah.
Damn it.
We can get to talk about Idiot Savants, one of my all-time favorite
That's
game
right.
Well,
shows.
that's what I count on you for. So go ahead. Fire away.
Let's talk about Idiot Savants just for a second. Because I feel like there were other game shows that tried to copy that format down the road, like Beat
Well,
the Geeks and...
Ben Stein's Money.
Yep, there's another perfect example.
Yeah.
Still holding on to a little bit of bitterness there, I sense.
We won the Cable Ace Award over Win Ben Stein's Money, and apparently he was outraged. So I feel good about that.
I feel great about that.
Yeah.
That he would be outraged about anything, that he was
Right.
showing emotion.
He showed an emotion.
Yeah.
He fired someone.
You know, it was great because I was young, and you know, to be on MTV when you're in your 20s is kind of like a dream.
Crazy.
Yeah, you go out and do college shows, and there's just a lot of excitement for you. And 4 shows a day we would tape, 4 days a week, and just bang them out. And I had sharkskin suits, and I swore to myself, like, I felt a little cheesy saying I'm going to host a game show, because at the time I was going to acting school and I had higher aspirations. And so I said, I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to turn into that cheesy game show host.
Sure.
So then I'm watching it on the air, and it's such a blur when you're doing 4 shows a day. You don't even remember what you did.
Of course.
So I'm watching it with my girlfriend, now wife, and here I am in my sharkskin suit, and the music starts, and the credits start to play, and the contestants start dancing, and I jump right in dancing with them, and I'm like, what happened? What did I just do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I feel like at least a handful of those have to be on YouTube. They have to be.
I hope so. I've got some old tapes that I have to convert from like VHS onto digital so my kids can see it someday.
That was like the ultimate nerd trivia.
It was.
It really was, because I don't know if people remember the show. The whole Savant thing was everyone got to pick a Savant category that, should they make it to the final round, the questions would be Savant level questions for their chosen field. So like if Jamie or I were on the show and said, oh, The Simpsons, they would be asking us expert level Simpsons questions.
Right.
So the hope was that you'd be watching and someone would say their Savant category was like James Bond movies, and you'd be a huge James Bond fan, and then you could play along at home.
Or you're just in awe that somebody has this much knowledge about one. What's your Star Trek?
No, it
Simpsons.
would have been The Simpsons or
Seinfeld.
or Friends or movies. I don't know.
Okay, what song did Bono sing when he was on The Simpsons?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's Savant level.
Savant level.
That's Savant level. What song did?
Why do you know
Bono
that?
I don't.
Oh. Sam, say anything.
I was gonna say I don't know that he sang a song, but
Of course he did.
all right.
That'll be on the next episode of the chat show. We'll have the answer to that question.
I look forward to
Write
it.
in your answers.
That's how you get people to tune in. This guy's a professional. I'm clearly just faking it like all of my acting.
Yeah, I went to podcast school. That's the key.
Can't thank you enough, honestly and truly. Yeah, it's almost a 2-hour mark. I can't thank you enough.
Good. My pleasure. This was great. And pizza.
And when I said, for the most part, and made some disparaging remark, I meant about myself, not about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the part about when I sounded like the Peanuts' parents?
Yeah. You commented immediately how that arguably should, if there's a vote, it's on the nomination list of worst interview moment in history.
Because there wasn't any other way to take it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a backhanded insult.
No.
It was just an insult.
I asked you to be vulnerable and share something.
Yes.
And then said that all I heard was the parents from the Peanuts cartoon when you were talking about something wildly sincere and personal.
Yeah, I think I was crying.
Well,
After you said
I
it.
was crying shortly thereafter. We do something when we wrap up the show, Greg, I probably didn't know about, called the Larry King game.
Okay.
I don't ask much of most, but I do ask this of you. The Larry King game came about when Jamie Foxx, once again, my better half and the head writer of the show, invented the game. We just are so enamored by that moment Larry would take on his show on CNN. Well, right before he would go to the phones, he would look down the barrel of the camera and share something, some thoughts. Someone tweeted one at me recently, which was Larry said, I always thought the story of Rumpelstiltskin was stupid. And then he'd go to the phones. So there are 3 things I need. A bad Larry King impression. I don't want a good one. I don't want a good one. What I'm trying to do, Greg, is take the pressure off.
Okay.
You don't need to do a good Larry King.
Yeah.
So now anything works.
Okay.
As Larry, one of the little Larry Kingisms, or he shares something about his past, thoughts, past, memory, as Larry, not about you. And then go to the phones. If the name of the city is funny sounding, that doesn't hurt.
Okay.
That's it. Impression, Larry shares something, he goes to the phone. There's your camera. When you're ready, it's the Larry King game. Have at it.
Welcome back to the Larry King Show. I recently had a memory. I was in college, 1947. Met a nice girl, went back to her place, making love. Her sister comes out of the closet. We did a train. Now this, Sandy from Rancho Cucamonga. You're on Larry King.
That's how you play the Larry King game, ladies and Jews. Wowzy zowie. No, when you said I had a memory, I thought that was the button. That's why the spit take. Welcome back on the show. I had a memory. St. Louis. Yeah, that would have. Fantastic. And thank you.
Thank you.
Now your favorite thing is you sit there uncomfortably while I wrap things up for the folks at home.
Is this where you plug my comedy dates?
Please go to gregfitzsimmons.com, his website, to get all the comedy dates. Is there another website they should take them to?
Fitzdog.com is fine.
Fitzdog.com, if you dare.
Kev, I'm getting a note from the sponsors that we actually have another sponsor today. Today's sponsor on the show is hats. They're like pants for your head.
Nice!
Because we're all wearing hats today.
The 3 of us with the different hats.
That's right.
Maybe the first time.
The 3 stages of man.
3
these
different
hats.
types of cap today.
Right.
Yeah. John from Toronto, Canada. I love the show and listen to it on morning commute. Your interviews are always wildly entertaining and honestly some of the best I've ever heard. I've got a Larry King game for you. If you write in a Larry King game, folks, you get a Kevin Paul's Chat Show t-shirt. Our guest has one in his gift bag.
Oh,
Unlike
so great.
his podcast, this one gives out a gift bag.
Gave you a mug.
I did get a mug. Wasn't in a bag. Felt weird. Just walked out with a mug. It's reusable. Bring that to the shopping.
Yeah, it's so good because my wife was just saying we need tote bags.
By the way, where's that bit? 17 now.
Yeah.
Reusable bags in
Yeah,
my trunk.
You're right.
What am I collecting them for? I need a bag for my bags. I remember traveling the world in my youth, and I lost my passage back home in an arm wrestling match to a delightful scamp named Molly Brown. That was one tough woman. Even an iceberg couldn't put her down. Moose Jaw, you're on the air. Thanks for all the funny, John, Toronto, Canada. John, I'm going to need your shirt size and address. You idiot. Yeah, don't submit a Larry King game, folks, unless you also include your shirt size and address. But John, how about a last name? Would it kill you? From Toronto, Canada. Thanks for that. Sammy,
Yeah, buddy.
thank you so much for being a part of the show today.
My pleasure, truly.
And taking some of Greg Cromer's money last night.
Well, you know, I do what I can.
We all did. Dr. Evil Chen, or Kenny, as he's known around these parts. Angie Johnson on makeup today, filling in for Samantha Ward. We go to the Michael Duman and the Jason Mackin tour up in the Crow's Neck. Something a little off?
Nope, this all sounds just right to me.
I just love that you point out the normal makeup person's name who wasn't here, in case people were wondering.
What happened to Samantha Ward today?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd like to give her credit.
for not being here.
Eric Jensen provides the TriCaster.
Here.
Is that his name? That's not his name.
Oh, boy.
Jensen. I should probably give him the actual name since he gave us the Rolls Royce of TriCasters.
Samsonite.
Can you look up that real quick? Tim Jensen.
Wait, Tim Jennison?
Jenderson.
Lawrence Jesterson.
Jenderson? It's on your phone.
Tim Jennison.
I don't feel like that's it. New tech. Yeah. Did you see the documentary Tim's Vermeer?
No.
Please do.
Okay.
Spectacular. Starring this very man who sets out to paint a Vermeer to prove that Vermeer, the great artist from, I'm going to say, the 15th century, used opticals.
What's an optical?
Projected an image
Oh, and traced it.
and traced it.
Ah,
His
interesting.
paintings looked like
Too realistic.
photographs.
Right.
Yeah. Brilliant documentary.
Huh.
Tim's Vermeer. Tim also has a last name, created the TriCaster, and we thank him. Kenny's trying to tell me, yeah? You know it? Jennison. Tim Jennison. We thank him.
I think we should jettison this credit.
Sean Casey and the gang here at the West Side Comedy Theater. Come see shows. I will be here next Saturday night, apparently, doing a set. That was emailed me. If you're in the Los Angeles area. But next Sunday at Largo at the Coronet. Big show, 7th anniversary. All the gang will be there. Come by, say hi. 17 tickets still available. I would go now to Largo at the Coronet, whatever their website.
Largo-la.com.
Largo-la.com. That's our show for today. Sammy may or may not be doing a show on the 24th. Follow him on Twitter at Sam Levine
With the 2 M's.
with the 2 M's. Until next time, and as always, get out of my face.